I got invited to this thing uh, partly out of emotional blackmail. And I'll tell you why. Because 18 months ago, I turned my back on the Agile community. I stopped consulting. I stopped writing. I stopped thinking. I stopped talking to friends. I stopped going to conferences. But I did it kind of slowly. So last year was officially the end of any speaking or any kind of stuff. And I apologize to Agile Manchester, who pitched me as Mike's last talk ever until Krakow. But I couldn't refuse when Paul said, hey, you inaugurated the first one. Wouldn't it be nice if you did the 10th one? Right? And so I didn't mention the whole, but I don't do this anymore, because that would have just been complicated. So I thought, what could I come and talk about? And because I'm naturally at this point where I've really just resolved certain things in my head, there's a lot of clarity. And so that's what I want to try and share with you. Gesundheit. So this is really just a walk through some thoughts and reflections over the last 10 years. But you can leave anytime you like, by the way. I live an open space life. I'm not going to try and hold you. But if you were to leave now, this is what I'd like to take away. I hate the idea of diversity. It sucks. It's really stupid. I go with, we're all just bags of stuff. And you're as interesting as the stuff in your bag. So if you are a Irish black lesbian one-legged blind person, but you think like 99% of the rest of the world, you're just boring and uninteresting. And all those interesting things about you are not in your bag. And diversity is what's in your bag. So please, if you left now, commit to getting more stuff in your bag. Go and see other people, go to other conferences, change jobs, shave, whatever it is going to make you interesting, go and do that. Also, stop looking for answers, because there's no shortage of people who are going to try and sell you answers. And that's one of the things I want to talk about in this talk. And that kind of works with the question everything, often. Yourself, your purpose, why you're building this feature, whatever. Just question it, get into that routine. But also seek out and embrace community, because this is where you learn. So if whoever's going to leave, you can leave now. That's, your job's done. So what about me? First and foremost, I'm a software developer. I've been developing software for almost 30 years. And it's taken me to incredible places. I've worked pretty much everywhere in the world with some of the biggest companies and some of the nicest, best thinking people. And about 10 years ago, I had enough. There was no purpose and it was a waste of time. And I took a break and I went and became a human rights lawyer. And that took me to interesting places, but it also put more stuff in my bag. So some of the stuff we'll talk about is through a filter of being kind to each other, treating humans like humans, and so on. I still do a lot of software development, but as a startup builder. So I have a company with a bunch of people and we build venture, we're a venture builder, we build startups. I'm also a dad. I have 2 grown-up daughters and 2 young sons. I'm 45, and that's really relevant because I'm also going to my grumpy phase. So some of the stuff in here is just real, just 45-year-old overweight man grump. So I hope you'll bear with me. I'm also the guardian to a dog, and this is relevant because, we'll find out in a bit. My experience in the Agile space has been interesting, really, because I came through as a developer, and then as a trainer of developers, as a leader of developers, as a confidant to executives who were trying to build stuff. And I've kind of seen a lot of industries and a lot of parts of industries. And so I went into taking that experience and coaching people on how to build stuff and how to lead the building of stuff. And quite early on, I got typecast into Mike will fix your big ugly company. So Somehow I ended up in the really big, ugly companies, the Cisco's of 46,000 people. The biggest company I think I worked at was Maersk. There's 110,000 people in Maersk. And if you think your 6 people plus one is challenging, try and get 110,000 people to roughly move in the same direction. It's basically Mauritius versus China. Okay, so that's basically me, and I'm kind of retired, and I live in Spain, which is relevant because it means I just don't like hard shit. I like sunshine, and it's free, and I like being lazy while I work 18 hours in my garage. Okay, so here's a little reflection point. I'd like for you to turn to somebody sitting next to you and just have a very short conversation. This is 10 years, okay? Put your hands up if you're under 25. 25 and under. I know you can flatter yourselves all you like. You're definitely not one of those. All right? So I didn't see any hands up. Okay. All right. So 10 years ago, you were 15-ish. That would be interesting. So have a conversation person next to you. Where were you 10 years ago? May 2009. Who were you? What were you caring about? Have a quick conversation. Now, who was skating naked in Finland trying to break ice with their naked bottom 10 years ago? 10 years in a human life can be transformational, right? Um, Depending on when it is, you could be hoping to change the world. You could be expecting your first child. You could be falling in love for the first time, right? And the lovely thing about linear, and if you live long enough, is you get to check it out. And we're 10 years on from this conference, which is like a milestone. Um, well, 10 years ago, Agile was younger and it was hopeful, at least for some people. I was one of those people, and there's a whole bunch of people like Tobias Mayer and Diane Larson who were quite hopeful that there would be a rehumanization of work. Um, how how well that hope was realized, I don't really know. You guys will probably help me, but I can guarantee you that 10 years ago it was more hopeful. We were going to change the world of work, and we were going to build cool shit. Oh yeah, I'm going to swear a bit in this. So the way I've categorized the last 10 years is in the good, the bad, and the ugly. There's not many slides in this. It's probably like 5 more. Um, so we'll start with the ugly first. The big ugly thing that's happened in the last 10 years is the industrialization of Agile. It's a big fucking industry right now. There's big companies, there's big company agendas, the profit motive, there's the treating of companies as just consumers. And what happens with that is standardization of something that really is overwhelmingly customized because we're all different, contexts are all different. But in order for a company to sell you a standardized product, it's to their benefit. You can't run a profitable business if each case you had to completely customize. It goes against the rules of industry. But that's what we've got. And you are helping that shit happen because you're going out looking for fucking models and recipes and templates and stuff. And it's going to just continue. And one of the benefits of me being out of this community now is that I don't have to care about less is better than safe and safe is better than Scrum and this is better. I just don't care. And my new friends, they don't care either. Because the people I hang out with now just want to build, ship, make money, change the world. That's it. They don't want any of the, this is my little kingdom. At least they don't want it yet. Okay, let me qualify that. They don't want it yet. 10 years ago, I was on the course to become a certified Scrum coach when I think at the time there's 110 or 20. And we were transitioning from this gift culture where Ken, Schwaber, or Jeff would gift someone a CST for being strategic. This is how we ended up with the PMI bridge, the gift. And when it started, a group of us, Jeff Watts and Tobias Mayer and a few other people, tried to restructure how CSTs were picked. That it had to be, rather than a theoretical training, it had to be delivered by someone with significant experience. And we were going through this route, and I was hopeful. Remember the young and hopeful? But it's turned into this complete shitstorm of just let's print some money. You can do exams online. I've seen Scrum classes, I don't know, for experience gain. This is like a degree in religion from the University of Online, right? It is a money-making thing. I don't have a problem with money-making. I'm quite impressed by it, and I'd like to do more sometime. But I guess the reason I'm kind of pissed off about the industrialization of Agile is that this shit is important. Every day, thousands of people show up to try and do something interesting with their lives. And I, for one, believe that an Agile approach to things is a much more human approach. It recognizes that we've got some complexity here and we need to work within that context. It recognizes that people have different strengths at different times, and so we need to work together like a jigsaw to get the answer. It's not a one-size-fits-all, but the industrialization doesn't do that. The industrialization says, yeah, more or less one-size-fits-all. Coaching, I haven't got a problem per se with coaching. I think it's very effective, and God knows I made a shitload of money doing it. But who are we coaching, and on what basis? I've seen many coaches, and I've done this myself, to be honest, where you go into a situation and there is a power dynamic. The power dynamic is, you've got the title coach, so you must know your shit. But really, we don't. And I've seen it exploited. I've seen just complete, mediocre, stupid ideas pass for expert advice. And the reason people can do that shit is because it's an industry. So that's the ugly side of it. The other bit is incompetent leadership. It's rife. I've got to say, none of the stuff I'm criticizing here or observing, I don't think it's intentional. I don't think that someone who wakes up one morning and says, I'm going to fuck up the world. Okay, maybe some people do, but I don't know, right? So I don't think anybody decides, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to pretend to be an Agile coach, or I'm going to pretend to sell shitty certifications. Somehow we rationalize that, I put some information out, I'm just going to do the best I can, and they're going to buy it, and they can da-da-da. Somehow we make it okay. But that's how bad things happen to good people, right? So this incompetent leadership, it's in companies, it's in teams, and it's incompetent not because people want to do a bad job. I don't think. I'm still quite hopeful in the human personality, but it's incompetent because we don't recognize the context. So one of the key things I've learned in the last 10 years is about situational leadership, which means that based on the context, you need a different kind of leadership style, person, knowledge, whatever. And I think that's missing in our community today. And in companies that say that they're being agile. We really suck at pattern recognition of context. The Cynefin framework by David Snowden, I was going to say Edward Snowden, but that's a different Snowden, right? That guy is having interesting conversations in Russian right now. By David Snowden was another eye-opening thing for me because it gave me certainly a vocabulary to understand context and therefore understand that we have the wrong kind of leadership most times, right? In some of the big companies I've worked at, overwhelmingly, it's been a case of, Mike, come on in and do stuff to those people. I was like a digital agile mafia mobster hitman. Come on in, do stuff to those people. But then if I came back and I said, well, you also have to get stuff done, or I have to do stuff to you and people above you, they'll be like, oh, that wasn't part of the deal. Maybe you didn't understand me the first time. Come in and do stuff to those people. Get them to work. And I think that's incompetent leadership. Not recognizing that the change that I'm bringing in or triggering is also gonna change me. So my new best friend, not so much best friend just yet, but really good friend, is Elaine. Elaine, hi. You do the tango. I know, right? Because you said you're a really funky mover. I live in metaphor. That's where I live all the time, most of the time. And for me, the metaphor that works with any kind of change, especially when you're asking people to change how to think of work, is the tango. You can't have a set plan. Or maybe you can, but you also have the understanding that if it changes, your partner has to change with you. And if you're dancing on the dance floor and you decide, actually, I'm going to do the funky chicken right now version of tango, it's not a cool look to just stand aside and just watch this other person go nuts. You have to somehow follow the flow. And if you're dancing in a tango competition and everybody else is dancing too, guess what? They will also adapt. So the person that makes the change or initiates it is also part of it. And it's this fluid movement is what I see in my head. And another aspect of this incompetent leadership is completely not recognizing that other parts of this machine are going to have to change. The other really ugly thing is thought leadership. If I have to see another thought leadership thing, I will have to fuck someone up. Honestly, it's like, so if you're a thought leader, that makes me a thought follower, because you know what? I can't think, and you're the thought leader? What the hell does that mean? Did I thought vote for you? What's your thought manifesto? It just makes no sense. We all have thoughts, we all have ideas. But what I see, and I think what's grown over time, is because we have social media, we have LinkedIn, we have things like, we have platforms where people can build profile to sell more shit. Okay? And it's just ugly. Most of us just want to go and do purposeful work well. That's all we want to do. But of course, we also have to pay our bills. I think the really ugly part of thought leadership is this suspension of reason. Again, it's a power play. If you're a thought leader, and most marketing people will tell you, just go be an authority on anything. And actually, you know what? Start like you mean to go on and fake the shit out of it. Just go, I'm the #1 authority on toe gum. What else toe gum? Toe gum. It's the gum in between your toes. I'm the world's authority, #1 on toe gum. And now all of a sudden, people have to listen to you. I mean, you'd get called for interviews by the BBC. And here's a world authority on toe gum to tell us about how toes should work. So when you hear that, the stage is already set for you, the person who's not really entirely engaged, to suspend reason. And that is one of the consequences of this thought leadership. Now, the thought leader doesn't intend for you to suspend reason. We do that all by ourselves. We give them the benefit of the doubt. They must know what the hell they're talking about. This is not to say that don't listen. It is to say, take it in and critically think about it. And that's something that, as a community, I've seen happen over time in our industry. We suspend reason. We let really mediocre thinkers tell us what's right. I see it in big companies. I see it in small companies. A little less in small companies because we just don't have time for that. There's just too much money. Too much is at stake. Usually, the survival of the team or the company. The other part of the ugly bit I want to talk about is the poor guidance. Every new thing could be improved with guidance. And I don't mean guidance like help notes. I mean like a guide, somebody to guide you through. I was trying to find this cartoon I saw years ago, and it's about someone in a hole. And a priest walks past, and here's this person in a hole. And I'm terrible at jokes, by the way, so there's no fucking punchline. But the priest walks past, and the person in the hole says, "Help me out," and the priest prays, because that's all the priest can do. And comes up with some shitty solution, it doesn't help the person in the hole. And then another guy comes along, another person comes along, another person. Finally, someone comes along, and the guy says, "Help me." And the person comes along, crawls in the hole with them. And the person in the hole says, "What the fuck are you doing? How are you going to help me from here, idiot?" And he says, "Well, you know what? I was in a hole like this, like a couple of months. It's not the same hole, but I've been in a hole. And I'm sure if I got out of that hole, I can help you get out of this hole." Right? Now, for me, that it didn't say coach, it didn't say anything. It said to me, that's who I want to be. And of course, that's a filter now. That's a thing in my bag that I use to look at other people who walk past people in holes. And what I see overwhelmingly are people who show up at teams in holes who have no fucking clue, NFC, no fucking clue what a hole is. They have a 2D rendition of a hole that they read in a book or a 2.5-day course. This is theoretically a hole, and you are theoretically in the hole, and I could theoretically get you out. But all the while, we are absolutely wasting time. We're wasting people's most vital resource. They will never get it back. So, agile coaches in the room, go and get a fucking clue. Go and build a company. Go and hire developers with your own money. With your own money. Let them build shit for you. Miss deadlines. Take phone calls from customers who say, "Where is my fucking thing?" and fix it now at 2:00 in the morning. Before you can go, you have to earn this stuff. Now, you may come from lots of different domains, and I'm not saying you have to be a software engineer or anything. You can come from different domains, but you have to get authenticity in this thing. So this brings me back to this idea of empathy, which I have us talk about later on. Empathy is all well and good, but it has to be authentic. I crawl into a hole with a team because I have been in that team. And you can't. All right. You have the takeaways anyway. Empathy has to be authentic. When we talk about empathy, we're talking about something that now gets to the very core of us as human beings. And we have bullshit meters for this that have been developed in millennia. We can tell authenticity in microseconds. So it's all well and good that you can take a course or you can do this, and you can develop that or whatever, but you have to feel it. And nothing teaches you to be in somebody else's shoes um, better than trying to be in other people's shoes, either mentally or actually. So one of the ugliest things I see is we go to people, we make a promise that we can help you, which is what it is. Otherwise, why are you in the room? And we don't deliver because we don't actually have that stuff in our bags. So if you're an agile coach in the room, please go and do that. Go and find a way to do that actually rather than theoretically, because otherwise you're no good. The other thing I see is guiding strength versus need. Let me explain what I mean. Has anybody heard about the chaos manager? The chaos manager only manages well during chaos. So what they do is they engineer the situation to get to chaos so they can handle it. Okay? And so when I see a lot of agile coaches who come from various different backgrounds, but they don't get software teams, and there's some message that went out on a memo that I never got that said, you could do that. My opinion is you can't. You cannot coach an agile software team if you don't know software. Because you have to be able to coach then human beings. You're not a human, I mean, okay, you are a human coach because technically they're human beings, but um, you're the idea of guiding to strength is you say, well, my strength is in humans. My strength is in humans, and this human being is confused or stressed or frustrated or whatever. No. They're trying to ship some code. Sure, they're stressed and blah, 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 but they're trying to ship some code. And the other person that checked it in didn't run some tests. So now they're pissed. It doesn't really help saying, take a deep breath, relax, think about what this person means to you, appreciate them. No, I want to punch their faces in because now our software is shit. And that's important too. It's context. So I find a lot of coaches go in and because they don't have the skills in either product development or software or UX or whatever, they overcompensate with the things that they can do. And I think that's poor. Okay, that's enough ugly. Let's go to the bad. This stuff, if you were doing a retrospective, would be stop doing now. We pretend there's empowerment. There isn't. In most teams, there isn't. And why is that? It's because we're in big structures that have almost unmovable boundaries. You can do whatever you like as long as it's one of these 4 things. And I don't know about you, but when I've gone into companies and I share out the cups of Kool-Aid that an agile team is empowered, I'm quite convincing until ideal meets reality in the form of a director or a manager who says, no, you just can't do that. But Mike the coach said you could. I don't give a shit what Mike the coach said. You just can't do that. And that's the good version. The bad version is, I'll see what I can do. Or I'll talk to HR about it. I'd much rather be told straight off you can't do that than waste my time trying to do that and finding actually it was never possible in the first place. So let's just cut the crap. We're not empowered. In the big companies that I've worked at, you're not empowered. And let's just get to why that is and fix it, or stop pretending that we are, because it's a waste of everyone's time. The other bad thing is the agile transformations. To be fair, I think there's either less press about them now, but the idea that you can be X by a time Y in an evolutionary process is just dumb. I'm going to have you agile in 3 months' time. It's lovely on paper. It is a project manager's wet dream. But it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And we need to stop that because A, we spend a lot of money on it. B, it's hugely disruptive. And the value is almost negligible. But because we have it, one of the follow-up things is recipes, right? I'm not sure whether it's last year, the year before, but I'm not going to name names because I just don't hold that shit in my head. But I saw one big consulting, Big Five or Big Four, whatever number they are now, who have the X way or I want to see Accenture. Anybody from Accenture here? Good. Well, you can sue me. I don't really give a shit. It might be the Accenture way, right? Or it might be whatever. What way? What way is that? It's the next level up from the safe or the less or the what. There's these recipes, and they feed these transformations because people look at them, oh, that's what I want. And if you have the understanding that what you're trying to do is fundamentally change how people think about work and how it follows through, then you'd know straight off that there's just no recipe for this. There's a bunch of ideas, there's a bunch of inspiration, but there's no real shortcut. The other really bad thing I find is the lack of objective measure. And this only really came about for me in the last 18 months, this realization when I started working with startups a lot more. And it's this idea that if I decide I'm going to change something, how am I going to know it makes a difference? And in the business world, it should be very simple. My motive is profit. I may do that through efficiency. I may do that through more sales. I may do that through a number of ways, but it should reflect on the bottom line. It's why world-class athletes take drugs. They don't take it because, well, maybe they do, feels good. But most of them take it so they can see it on the bottom line. And it means they're less tired, which means they can train harder, or they can run faster, or whatever it is. There is a measurable benefit. And we've lost that. Now, I love Paul like a brother. But he said something the other day on Wednesday, which tickled my brain, not in a nice way, which was agile at the core is about people. And in my head, I said, and purpose. And we lose that. I think we lose that. And I think we lose it because I have no clue about that, actually. I don't know why we lose it. But it's important. There's no reason for me to be in a room with these very cool people, interesting though they are. What is the purpose? Why are you at work? It's not to hang out with cool people. Whoever told you that lied. You're there to build whatever they're building, to sell it, to get paid, to pay your bills, to live happily ever after. That's more or less the story. There's no other reason. So let's not forget the purpose. And usually in businesses, it's to make a profit, to be better than the competition, competitive advantage. When I first got into the Agile movement, I thought if a company could use this properly, they would kill. They would kill. I'd be able to see that company. I'd go, that is an Agile company. And you know what? I can do it today, but they're not. Amazon is not an Agile company. Google is not an Agile company. Netflix, for all their voo-voo-va-va, they're not an Agile company. I don't know of anyone, I put my hand up if you do, who is killing their industry, and I mean in a good way because I'm young and I'm cool, who is really dominating their industry by doing iterations and quick feedback and engaging with their customers and their contracts and all of that proper stuff. Who's doing that? I want to see the incredible profit or the incredible products built out of this, dominating an industry. Does anybody know any companies that are doing that? Like significantly? After probably what's been more than $5-10 billion worth of money poured into it after 10 years? That's poor. Huh? Fortnite. One out of how many? But thank you. So for me, it's very clear. Do this, be awesome. If you do it and you're not awesome, you're not doing it right. That's basically it. So we don't have objective measures. And the other really bad thing, like I was saying before, is about this loss of purpose. And I think that's why we have a narrative that's overwhelmingly people, 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 huggy, huggy, huggy. Don't forget to build and ship cool shit. Otherwise, we will go broke and all starve to death. The problem with big companies is they have a huge amount of money, but a significant loss of purpose. So nobody knows where the value is coming from. Nobody knows who's really using our products or why. They just do some stuff, get paid personally, and that's it. And I think the loss of purpose is bad. Finally, on the bad, don't worry, I know I've significantly depressed you in this thing. I promise it gets better, but only slightly. Is the false narratives, AKA our mythology, the Spotify model. It's this little glimmer of hope and insecurity at the same time. Hope in the sense that, wow, someone could do it and they're really cool. Insecurity, it wasn't me, right? But it's this thing to follow. It's this, oh, they could do it. 10 years ago, it was Nokia. Nobody talks about Nokia anymore, do they? Right? How good was that? Right? And we do it because we're human. Humans tell stories, we need legends and so on. So I remember talking to an engineer in Google, and I was like, you guys must do like iterations. And yeah, we do iterations. You do Scrum. This was when I was Scrum junkie. Do you do Scrum? No. Do you do any of this when it really matters? No. Who would do that? But the stories, but no, we don't. One of my clients invited someone from AWS to give an internal talk, and I had a chance to sit with them. I said, how do you build what you build? I mean, what processes do you use? Do you use less or save? No. Or do you use Scrum? No. How do you do it? We just iterate. Do you do continuous deployment? Sometimes. Well, how do you do it most of the time? The person who wrote the code has to press the button to deploy it. Why? Because it's an act of responsibility. You're going to make sure your shit works before you click that button. So you could do all this other cool stuff, but you've put a manual process in to do it. Yeah. But the version we get out in the public domain that's sold by ex-consultants who are trying to build a fucking profile is, it was all super duper candy in Oz. It's just to sell more shit. And you need to stop believing that. And it's bad. It's bad. Okay, now's the good stuff. Are you ready for the good stuff? Yeah. See what I did there? I completely broke you down, demoralized you. Now I'm going to build you back up with hope. So the good shit about the last 10 years, people, is DevOps. So we took all these developers and these cross-functional teams and we said, you have to do this. You have to do this. You're responsible for all of this, for the quality, for the development, for the delivery, even responsible for what the users say. You have to do it all. And someone in this ecosystem broke. They said, well, if we have to do it all, we need control on how get it out there, how we get the feedback, how marketing works. Oh, by the way, we have a mindset. And that's, for me, DevOps. It started as a technological solution to something, has now become a way of doing and thinking. And so that's an incredibly good thing, at least for the tech part of it. If you're a lawyer, DevOps doesn't really work. I mean, you're gonna really stretch that fucking thing, right? It doesn't work. So the practices are really, really good. Depending on what community you were in as a software developer, it's more or less test-centric. So I'm currently in the Ruby space, and it's very test-centric, which is a good thing because developers often don't like to test. Good thing, last 10 years, is there are more non-North American experts. 10 years ago, it was very annoying. There's some fantastic American speakers, technologies, thinkers. But there's also some extremely mediocre, I just happen to be here because I speak with a twang people. And maybe at the start, and this is no offense to my American friends because I have some of my best friends are Americans, but I think that monopolizes the narrative. And it doesn't really let in other ways of thinking about problems. And when I was coaching, I noticed this significantly because a lot of the early inspiration for my coaching came from American people, American experiences. And I don't know if you've ever tried appreciation exercises in the UK or even in Poland or in Germany. They don't fucking work because we don't like to talk about stuff and we don't like to receive gratitude. If I come up to you and go, Paul, on that last release, you really helped me. I am so grateful. If you were, I mean, you are American, so you'd receive it like, oh, that's so, Mike, thank you. If you were British, you'd be like, I just want to die right now. I want to die right now, and I want you to die, but not right now, later on, painfully, right? And if you're Norwegian, you would probably go in Norwegian, I want to die right now, and I'm going to kill you too, because you just brought the spotlight on. And I'm pretty sure it's the same in Germany or somewhere else. And if you didn't know there was a cultural difference to appreciation, you would find that out. Okay? So I'm hopeful that more voices are going to come through with their own culturally developed ideas and expertise of what works in that context. So that's a good thing. Communities of practice like this are becoming more and more and more common. And that's good because it allows ideas to have sex. Not people, no people sexing, ideas sexing. And that's how cool stuff comes through. So this is good. The recognition that it takes more than just engineers to build a product is one of the most critical good things. People aren't talking now of what the fuck is a cross-functional team. They're talking about, how do I get one of those? How does UX work in here? How does voice testing work in here? We need one of those. Where do I get one of those? So now they've gone beyond the idea of the need for a cross-functional. They've gone to the next thing. So that's a good thing. Really, really good is that we have great foundations, which incidentally didn't cost anything for us to have. The Agile Manifesto didn't cost you or I anything to get created. Extreme programming essentially was a gift to mankind. The ideas of Ward Cunningham, free as air. But the things built on those, costly and wasteful, which is really ironic. So we have strong foundations. So if we were to cut back all the shit of certification and big business, we would have good foundations to build the next future on. I guess one of the more good things, the better things, is this idea that we're improving our ability to contextualize. 10 years ago, if an idea came to the table, nobody really stopped to think that actually it worked. The story you're telling me was that it worked great in a 6-person team who are trying to figure out how they're going to make the rent at the end of the month, and so did whatever needed to be done to be successful. Or they were all friends from college. We lost that context in the storytelling. And so we took it to the 5,000-person company and said, you people are just stupid because this is what you should be doing. And we forced them to do it. Pair programming with someone you don't know it sucks. It's like navigating a city with someone you've never met, who's probably an axe murderer and who speaks a different language. And you still got to be nice. It doesn't work. Pair programming in a company where teams are constantly fluid and they might not even know each other doesn't really work. But the story doesn't come that it came from a really small team who had been together for quite a while. So I'm hoping we are, or maybe I'm wrong, that the context is coming through with the learning. It worked in this context. And things like complexity are giving us the vocabulary to describe that context. So that's a good thing. So we're going to suck less in the future. But I don't care because I don't do this shit anymore. So then I had this idea. This is the most hopeful idea. That we're on an evolutionary trajectory. Okay? And maybe 10 years, or the last 10 years, this agile thing is going on for longer, but maybe actually where we are, if we could pull back and look at time, is we're just in a very, very early stage. Very, 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 very early stage. It feels like a long time because we're living it in human time, but maybe it's just teething troubles. Like if you were, I don't know, 2 years old, teething, literally teething and drooling and shit like that, and you thought, oh man, am I going to be teething for the rest of my life? That would suck. But we know, because you're not the first baby, that actually it's, at some point, you are going to have full teeth, and then you'll have other problems. So my hope is that we're really early. And at some point, we're going to figure our shit out, and the big business will be a thing of the past, and certification will be great, and we'll fix the incompetence, and we'll emerge as this beautifully well-formed thing that lives for 17 days and then dies. That's hopeful. So let's close this off. 10 years' time, freedom to dream. Have that conversation again. And I'm looking at you, Enric. Where would you like to be? In your life, in your job, in whatever. And who do you want to be? George Clooney is taken. Go for it. So you've told your deep, dark, hopeful thing to a complete stranger. This is now chatter with strangers. It doesn't end well. I'm proof of that. I hope you've got hope from this and a bit of realism. And it's okay if you don't want to speak to me at the end of this, because I'm a bad person, but I don't really care. Please go, find purpose, and be useful to someone. Thank you.